Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati.
Hare Krishna. I'm Labangaratika, and this is my book, Bhagavad-gita as it is, and I will continue reading here. We are in the second chapter, and I'm very happy that you came by. This is the second chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, contents of the Bhagavad-gita summarized, and I am reading text 54. Arjuna uvacha stita pragyasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava stita di king prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk? Purport. As there are symptoms for each and every man in terms of his particular situation, similarly, one who is Krishna conscious has his particular nature, talking, walking, thinking, feeling, etc. As a rich man has his symptoms by which he is known as a rich man, as a deceased man has his symptoms by which he is known as deceased, or as a learned man has his symptoms, so a man in transcendental consciousness of Krishna has specific symptoms in various dealings. One can know his specific symptoms from the Bhagavad-gita. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks, for speech is the most important quality of any man. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak, and certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. The immediate symptom of a Krishna-conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow, as stated below. Yes. So this is a very interesting part of the second chapter. We start off. Arjuna will present his questions, his problem, as it were, and Krishna will then start off by describing in a very structured, systematic, analytical way, I want to say, the nature of the soul. Then we hear about yoga, the art of life. Since we are the spirit soul, but we're in this material world, how do we act? That is the art of living. We cannot artificially just pretend to be spiritual. And it also behooves us not to just, sink into the inertia of just following the body and the senses wherever they draw us. So we have to find a very good balance there. And now Arjuna is asking, so a person who has found that balance, or it's a little more than a balance. The previous verse here is about the person who is fixed in the trance of self-realization and attains divine consciousness. We're putting our bar pretty high. So how do you recognize that person? And we will have a few verses coming on here describing different symptoms of that spiritual realization in a live person that we meet. But in this first verse, Prabhupada is focusing on the speech. And there is a saying, that which the heart is full of, the mouth flows over. That saying may come out a little differently in English, but I know it still exists. So if we are very fond of something, if we have a love interest, or if we have our children, everybody knows parents who have little babies, they love them so much, and you can hardly stand being around them because that's all you will hear about. Oh, she smiled today. I think she said mama. And you will get to hear everything about their eating and their the cleaning, the sleeping, which is largely completely uninteresting. But that affection is so strong that it's difficult for a new parent to talk about anything else. It actually doesn't really matter where your focus lies, where your consciousness lies, where your ability, your intelligence, or knowledge lies. Whatever is close to your heart, that will come out of your mouth. And if Krishna is of course always in our heart, but if our heart is in it, if we are feeling that love, if we have made that decision, then that will come out. We are listening to speeches given by Prabhupada when he was still on this planet. Of course, he translated the books, he gave many lectures, but even in his daily dealing, when he would sit down and have conversation, his words would not stray very far from Krishna, but they would come out differently depending if they would be on a walk. He might give comments to the nature and to the, things that you see on a walk. But they will all come back to Krishna. If he would speak to scholars, he would enter on that level, and it will all come back to Krishna. So that's how you can recognize someone when they start to speak. Actually, most people, even I would say especially dishonest people, you will immediately hear them speaking about, oh, I'm a very honest man, you can definitely trust me. Prabhupada said that in a different connection. He said, it's just like a thief. If you wake up at night and there's a thief in your house and you're hearing some noise and you're saying, who is it? Is somebody there? And you will hear the answer, I'm not stealing, I'm not stealing. All right. So that's the first thing that comes to his mind. He doesn't want to be discovered, but that's actually where his mind is. He's in the stealing. So, Krishna consciousness, it's difficult to fake. And it's actually, we don't want to fake it. But even any kind of spiritual life, you can give a lecture, you can give a speech. But if you observe a person throughout their life, you can see that, is this just a show or is this something that continues forever? And we can also look at our own advancement as well. If we see, it's said about the mind, we have the mind, it is very flickering. It will constantly go in the direction of the senses. Like I get this very nice ginger tea that helps me speak, but it's also very tasty. And you look at it and you're thinking, oh, ginger. And then the senses will immediately draw your mind there. So many things. But a person who has that attraction for Krishna, then your mind will naturally be drawn to Krishna. So the mind is very flickering, it's very much under the control of the senses to begin with. But the more the person, because I'm not my mind and I'm not my senses, and I'm able to have a certain impact on myself, but it has to come from my desires. So Krishna consciousness comes from two directions. Sadhana bhakti means we practice Krishna consciousness. We learn from Krishna and from the spiritual master what is beneficial to our Krishna consciousness and what creates a hindrance in our Krishna consciousness. And that we implement that lifestyle and find that we actually start to become more and more attracted to Krishna. So even in any circumstance, you see something, just like if we go back to that, I have, that is my strongest experience of love in this world. I have 2 children, I have watched them grow up, and they fill my heart with joy. And you come home and you see their shoes and you think, oh, my children. You don't think, oh, so much sand and dirt on the floor. You think, oh, my children, I love them. You go in a shop and you see something they like and you think, maybe I should buy them this, this book or this hat or whatever it is. And in the same way, we can transfer our loving impetus, this natural drive to give love. We can transfer it to Krishna because that's where it actually belongs. I mean, we still love people around us. But when we can develop Krishna consciousness by growing our attraction to Krishna, it will come out naturally in our activities and in our speech. And this is one way how we can find somebody who doesn't just speak about Krishna when, when the camera is on, when he's paid to do so. But naturally in his life, Krishna is what will come up. I think I will read one more verse. Text 55. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parta manogatan atman yevatmana tushtas hita pragyas tadochyate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Yes, we spoke about that a little bit. We have that connection. The soul is situated in the heart of the body. And somehow or another we are so identified, we are so sure that we are this body. We don't even have to think about it. The hand goes wherever we want it to go. The eyes go wherever we want them to go. This is such a strong identification. But a person who can give up these varieties of desires for sense gratification that come out of mental concoction, and when his purified mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, that is quite a high level. But it's also a level that is it's achievable. It's not just a theory. And the purport here is the Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all the good qualities of the great sages, whereas a person who is not so transcendentally situated has no good qualifications, because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoctions. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental concoctions. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped, but if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation, for this devotional service will instantly help one onto the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Such a transcendentally situated person has no sense desires resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. Yes, so that we covered two things, speech and mind. And those things, you cannot control them artificially. And we are not trying to control them artificially. We are not trying to do some form of meditation where we turn off the mind and the thoughts and just become a little bit void. No, we have a personality, we have the ability to speak and to think, to be drawn by our desires, to make some plans, to make some activities. The only problem is the focus of that thinking and speaking and willing on those desires. When that focus is satisfaction of our temporary senses or some other, how to say, illusory thing, something that will not be there. I mean, I have that experience in life. I think most of us have. We have some picture in the mind. Pushpakash, I think is the expression, a flower in the sky. It's a good idea. It just doesn't exist. It's the only problem. Krishna does exist. We do exist. And it is quite possible by the process of sadhana bhakti, by the process of Krishna consciousness, to gain that realization. We are not disappearing. We are not making ourselves smaller. We are not making ourselves disappear. And we are not artificially just, pushing down all the desires that come up. Because, you push one down, the other one will come up. That is not at all what we are meant to do. We want to have a process that, where we can grow as persons, as individuals, where we can have a natural sense of ourselves. So when we speak, when we think, when we desire, when we do things, there is a flow, there is a natural, a natural identification with who we are. And this is accessible. We can practice it by Krishna consciousness. We can practice this. What it actually does is the soul's individual nature wakes up within the heart. Right now we are very covered. We are very convinced, I am this body, I am this mind, I am part of this time, place and circumstance. And that's it. Yes, and then you die. Then you take another body and you have the same conviction, very strong conviction, in a totally different body. Different time, different place, everything different. This is illusion. But it is possible that that sense of self, that sense of identification, we can actually focusing on who we actually are. This can wake up, this can grow. This is called Krishna consciousness. Here within those symptoms, we have covered the speech and we have covered the mind, and they are very predominant in every person. And we can see we don't reach this level of self-realization by shutting it down and cutting it off, but by directing it into the performance of bhakti yoga, devotional loving service to Krishna, we can wake up our real, actual, eternal identity, and this will also show in our speech and in our mentality. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam